How you guys doing? Hope everybody's doing well. I know you're doing well, especially now that you're listening to APOB Podcast. So in the next hour, what you guys are going to listen to is the two gentlemen that you typically hear interviewing, the Fox and the Captain. That's myself and my cohort. We are definitely not as interesting as our guests, but we definitely feel like we bring enough to the table that you guys would like to hear a little bit about our lives, some of the stuff that we're into, what drew us to podcasting, and this is kind of an insight as to why we choose the guests that we do and why we pursue them and choose them, some of our interests. And we hope to do many more of these, covering music, maybe covering movies, covering family life, just whatever. And of course, you can keep up with us at facebook.com/APOB Media. We are on patreon.com/APOB Media. And God, I try to keep it going. It's a lot of work, all of this podcast stuff. We touch on that too. How hard is it to keep a podcast going when you have a family and a job and all the above? So hope you guys enjoyed as much as we did. And cheers. Thank you guys for listening. And we'll see you on the other side. All right, Spider, kick this thing off, Broham. Welcome to a Perch Birds podcast. We are live coming to you 5x5 with your host, Mr. Fox.
Co-host.
Well, I think we both host, so we'd both be co-hosts, right? I mean,
okay,
right?
I can get that.
And yours truly, Mr. Capitan. Hello. So we're doing our first Captain and Fox kind of solo mission. We're actually recording this one for the interwebs. Hello, video. So you guys will be able to check that out on our YouTube page, or you can follow along. It's like visual commentary.
Visual commentary.
Can you say that? Is
you
that
could. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah. Does it have to make sense though?
Never.
It never does when it comes out of my mouth. So we've been podcasting since when? When did we start this?
November.
I think
if you consider doing podcasting, or listening to podcasting too.
Right.
We've been podcasting a lot longer if that was the case.
It's kind of like it's like comparing fangirling to actually being like in the band though.
Right.
I don't know.
We've been connoisseurs of the podcast.
Connoisseur. I really don't listen to as many as I should. That I'm not gonna, we're gonna do like the honest stuff.
Sure.
I listen to specific ones and a lot of their episodes, but I don't listen to a lot of a diversity of them. I like to really like go through a lot of so if I stumble on one, I'll download 10 or however many episodes, if they're really long, maybe 2 or 3, and I'll chew through those, and then I'll continue until I'm kind of bored with it, or they do something I don't like. And that's terrible to say, but I'll usually listen to one until there's like an episode where I'm like,
I'm totally guilty as charged too. You find the one brands or whatever that you like, and then just like you said, you do a couple of stumbles and you find something you like. But we're talking earlier how a podcast is kind of like an investment.
Yeah.
Because some of them, like for Joe Rogan's podcast, the Joe Rogan Experience, they're on average, let's say 2 hours, but they can go 3 hours, 4 if he has like a decent cast or whatever.
A 3.5 hour cast would be probably the longest one I think I've listened to. Mm-hmm. I know that when he does these things, he probably sets them up with no top to it.
Nah.
I don't think he would tell them like, hey, this is going to be an hour long. But I noticed like with some of them, like Mel Gibson and stuff, like they had X amount of time because he hustled them back out.
Right. Which was a bummer because I really wanted to listen to the Mel Gibson one.
Yeah, right? Like I was really surprised that they kept it so away from him, I guess. Like there was almost no conversation had. Like he kind of like broached the subject, it seemed like. But it didn't seem like it was... it didn't seem like it came across as something that he wanted to focus in on, like what's going on right now with him, some of the stuff they talked about in the past, and some of the rougher patches that Mel Gibson may have had, because he's had some political stuff. I don't know, it's not political maybe, but just like
could be.
Yeah, but it's whatever. But I just thought that would come into the mix, and it never did, and I thought that was different. They talked mostly about
stem cell
research.
Yeah, research, and that was kind of amazing too, because his dad went through some crazy stuff, and and to hear the recovery and the positive effects that it had was pretty wild.
Yeah.
Like when you heard stem cells, like it was at first it was kind of like a no-no.
Yeah.
Just because of kind of the religious aspects of it.
And I didn't honestly know from Joe Rogan's podcast. I didn't really know what it was about. Like you say stem cell, and you just kind of think of like what was that sheep's name? The sheep that was cloned. What was her name?
It was like some like Betty or Sally
in like the late 90s, and then from there it like got nipped somehow to that will never happen, or they created those laws. But that it, to me that demonized it, right? So then them talking about it, I could see why it had to be done that way. Like, hey, it's really not something you think it is. But the doctor that was talking was based out of Panama,
right?
And that's where they had to treat everybody because it's still not a medically recognized thing or whatever.
Legal.
FDA, FCC cleared.
Yeah, legal.
Yeah, we're legal. Yeah, straight up. Well, and there's
FDA.
like some loophole that they've utilized to do the other stuff, which is bone. It's bone stem cell compared to the stuff that was the placental, the cord, the placenta cord, right, or whatever. Yeah, and
placenta
that was
cord.
Placenta cord,
umbilical cord,
the
umbilical placenta moderator adapter cord.
I do podcasts, not doctors. I'm not a doctor, a nursian.
Of anything. That's what speaks to podcasts too, though, is cool because they can cover a wide range of topics.
Yeah.
And the stuff you learn. I mean, shit. I've learned about astrophysicists and astrophysiology.
Sure.
That's the actual study of right?
Maybe astrophysics would be the subject, right?
See,
but it's maybe
that shit blows my mind. They start talking about the tiniest tidbits of atoms, and they lose me. Well, I'm still kind of enticed just because of how, like, man, I am way too dumb to hear this.
Sure.
But it's cool because it's like, these people are really passionate usually about what they do. And when you hear them talk about it, it's pretty apparent that they're not out here just to push something on somebody.
Yeah.
They just want to educate people. Like Neil deGrasse is one of probably the best examples of that.
Oh, Star Talk is the beast. Yeah.
I listened to some of his.
How funny we go directly from Joe Rogan's podcast over to Star Talk, which is Neil deGrasse Tyson. And people, if you guys want to know what it is that we listen to, those will probably be the two that find their way onto my phone. I'm subscribed and I get all the recents. But go ahead. Sorry.
But yeah, no, I mean, when he talks to Neil deGrasse Tyson, you could tell he's very passionate and he wants to teach people and he wants to dumb it down so people understand what's going on.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's not dumbed down, but he found a way, like so many of these successful like social media cats, to relate to, to use an overused term, I think, is millennials, I guess, but really anybody, because as old as he is, he I remember seeing him when I was a kid, and now he's like kind of moved into the spot where Bill Nye the Science Guy was for me when I was a kid. Like if I ever wanted to watch a TV show, there was that, and then there was the guy before him that was crazy. We talked about him before, I thought, in a podcast with the big rat, and he'd run around. And it was he was like a mad scientist.
Huh.
Oh, you don't remember this guy?
No. Maybe we're throwing names out there.
It was something's world. Beekman's World. That's the name of that show. Beekman. You don't remember that guy? Beekman. Watch. Look at the picture. You can't tell me you can't remember this guy. You know this guy.
Oh.
Yeah, that show is.
I get that.
For sake of this being on YouTube, I'm not going to try to play any of the music, but if you guys look up Beekman's World, you'll know exactly who Beekman is. Yeah. Well, I guess, and again, coming back to the age thing, like I would remember him, but I'm almost 30.
Yeah. Well,
this year,
Beekman, stuff like that. People talk about Zambubafoo.
Yeah.
My wife told me I didn't watch Zambubafoo.
Don't lie to me. Why do you gotta make it sound like it's a thing, bro?
I didn't say it's not a thing.
I was proud to be a Zambubafoo watcher. I can't even say it.
But I mean, you remember like Reading Rainbow. Oh, yeah. You remember Captain Planet.
Right.
What's that other one? Zoom, right?
Yeah,
they did little projects and experiments.
That's right. That was so cool.
And now we have SpongeBob.
Right.
Dude, fucking horrible.
I don't want you to hate on SpongeBob, though.
I do. I mean, hey, people are gonna hate me right now. I fucking hate SpongeBob. I don't give a fuck what you say.
Now, is this because of your kids and you've watched it too much, or you just have never? Because honestly,
I guess I never got it. I mean, I guess there's that, and then also it's just like, God, this is fucking retarded. I couldn't do it.
I'm gonna make my straight admission here. I felt the exact same way. For whatever reason, SpongeBob I think was on like Netflix for a little while, right? And I started putting it on, and the comedy starts to click. And it was really weird because I love the stupid SpongeBob cartoons, but I hated them, bro. I would not have them, but now I have every one of them for the kids. Well, up to like season 10 or something.
I'd still giggle. I mean, there were some parts that were funny.
Yeah,
that's kind of like people with Family Guy. At first I didn't get Family Guy.
Yeah, I was the same way
because I was like a Simpsons dude. Yeah, growing up to the Simpsons and South Park.
You felt like you were betraying.
So, but when I started listening when I started watching Family Guy, I was like, this is fucking funny.
Yeah.
And some of his jokes, like, I didn't get until I was older.
Yeah.
And which kind of speaks to how deep some of their jokes go. And then they go back to other episodes where their jokes are kind of interconnected amongst episodes. Right. I think that's brilliant.
Well, he's a very, Seth MacFarlane's, I don't know how far he actually controlled the entirety of the episodes, but I feel like he was the major writer or whatever you want to call it, the main dude. But it felt like he was trying to say things consistently. And a lot of, Simpsons did it. So many shows do this. A lot of, SNL is very infamous for doing that. They speak to a lot of political subjects. But I think it's really cool to see that the way that they did that there, it just seemed like it really fit the bill and it was well done. But
they took the South Park approach where everybody was fair game and they didn't give a fuck. They didn't give a fuck. It went deep. Since we're talking about cartoons, let's talk about the Simpsons thing. Have you seen the Simpsons like telling the future and all these? What's really going on?
What's really going on?
Matt Groening, is that how you say his name?
Groening.
Maybe it's Groening.
Groening. It's French.
Either way, that motherfucker's a time traveler. Give it up, bro.
Something, dude. Him and Neo, they fly through. They don't. Keanu Reeves. He doesn't age. He's actually a vampire.
That's true.
If you noticed, he's been the same since like he was born. I think he came out looking the way he does now. It's weird. Just popped out of like an egg somewhere.
Dude, that was crazy ride.
So that's some of the podcasts we listen to at Star Talk. I do like to listen to Bill Mayer, but even me and we do not like to talk politics as much as it would seem. So we like to broach the subject, I'd say. Sure. But I don't like to make this into like this.
It's a light skim.
It's a light skim, right? And Bill Mayer is not the place where I get my news from exclusively. I think that's a horrible idea, and that can feed into the whole thing where people can get very biased because you don't look into different sources. But Bill Mayer likes to go. He calls himself a liberal, but he's like an outside liberal. He's an older guy, so he does have kind of like Rogan, like kind of left leaning, I guess. But it's just interesting to see.
Well, he's also not married to his ideas. His ideas can change and evolve, and
he's fucked up on he got kicked off of something. I can't remember what the show was for saying some 9/11 joke like right after 9/11. And it was not a joke, but it was something kind of sharp. I don't remember what it was, but he said something about blowing planes up and somebody being on it. But it ended up turning into this big old thing. But then he was able to come back on HBO, and then he's not hindered. Like, he's able to cuss and say whatever he wants, and people can argue, and I like the fact that he puts a panel of people opposite to him.
Right.
So that's another podcast I really dig.
I think that's what speaks to Rogan's open-mindedness, and he brings people on his podcast that he doesn't always necessarily agree with too.
Yeah.
And there'll be debates. There's some heated debates I've heard on his podcast, and I'm uncomfortable. I'm like, man,
yeah,
they going deep at this.
Well, especially when somebody honestly is, I don't know how to say this and not sound like I'm trying to be judgmental, because of course I know, humbly speaking, I'm not as smart as a lot of guys that go on that show. But even when there's people that are much smarter than him, he'll still go to bat for his understanding of it and try to be like, explain to me why, you take this like, damn it, it's not Jordan Peele. Who's that? Who's the Canadian guy?
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson. I say Jordan Peele. I think that's Key and Peele. Totally different people. But yeah, Jordan Peterson, when he was on there, I liked how he would tell him to explain these things. And what I liked is that they would come back to the subject about how a lot of media, specifically Channel 4, which was the UK station that was doing that interview that got real viral recently. But the way that they would angle things, and a lot of media does that, like they would try to make you feel the way that the commentary does or the network does, CNN or Fox or whatever, what have you. Even BBC is guilty, I think, of looking at things from like a weird light because they're biased from where they're at. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't like to go too far into, again, like politics, and so that's why I'll listen to Bill Mayer every like once a month maybe, but he puts one out like every week, I think.
Just to catch up.
Yeah. And there's a lot to it. I really dig it though. That's something that you guys can get with like a Google Music subscription. I think it's part of a paid thing. I don't know if you can get those free.
A lot of YouTube stuff is free too usually.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so what's another one you listen to?
I like to listen to I've listened to Bill Burr's podcast, the comedian.
Yeah, he's funny.
He's pretty funny. His take on some stuff is just hilarious.
Yeah.
He starts talking about sports, and he loses me there.
Yeah.
Not that I'm downing on sports talk. It's just I don't know.
There's
this cat.
Watch it. This cat I used to work with had some really interesting ways of remembering things. It was all based around years and months and records of different baseball players. So if let's just say I'm horrible with baseball. Let's say Tom Rogers, just making a name up here. Let's say that he's born in.
I would say, damn, bro, that was good.
Thanks. Yeah,
Mr. Rogers.
He's number 14.
Did he play for the Dodgers?
He did. The Roger Dodger. No, he. So Tom, let's say he was born in like 1968. That was like his year that they won the World Series, whatever team. All the batting averages for that year he'd have memorized from like some random year, or it could be a team that was like a favorite for a year or something, have it all memorized. And whenever a number for like an appointment or money or anything, and he was like my manager, he would say the name of the player and their number on their back. Like he almost had like a Rain Man thing,
like an algorithm.
Like his brain would just kick over and he'd be like assigning things to it and then filing it away. And when I'd miss something, he'd be like, yeah, Michael Cox, number 16. You know what? You forgot to put away this paper. You didn't file it. What did I tell you? He was from New York. Like,
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's like some brain power right there.
Yeah, and it was insane to see that. But yeah, I know a lot of cats like Bill Burr does that. Like where they'll just click into like these numbers, and it's I think there's something about that. It's like almost a hustler's mentality, kind of like a betting kind of thing, where they just numbers and exacts and averages and everything's like really interesting, in that perspective. Bill Burr, man.
Yeah, I've kind of went deep on the comedians guys because I like to hear a little bit of humor. Yeah. That's what I appreciate about Joe Rogan is as serious as all of his podcasts get, there's still a little bit of humor in there. And I enjoy that. It's kind of
and it's always highbrow humor. It's good. It's good, smart humor. You know, like you feel like there's
plenty of dick jokes that come across, and you could tell Rogan doesn't even giggle because he's like a seasoned comedian, so like, that doesn't even faze him anymore. Yeah. But listening to Joey Diaz's podcast can be kind of cumbersome sometimes. Yeah. I mean, I like that he has like one of those coming down from the depths stories and now he's made it up to where he's at now. I love that about him, and some of his guests are pretty cool and really relax with him. But man, it was about the same old story like back in 1978, we're sucking dicks in the park for the rock, it's just like,
or they always got to be jumping people because they're faggots. I never understood why that's always like the verbiage, like, there's like two flavors of people. There's a man and then there's a faggot, and you jump the faggots and you beat up the faggots and you take things from the faggots. Like, no, we were down in the street and there was these two faggots, coming down the road, and so of course it's like after 12, well, fucked up, I jumped him, and let me tell you something, Joe Rogan. Let me tell you something.
I love how he pronounces their whole name.
Yeah, he'll slow it all the way
down. He's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, he is.
Some of his stories, man, I just sit there and laugh. But like with him, when he has like Joey Diaz and some other cats, when they're Rogan them all together, man, that's some great shit.
Yeah, well, and I like how they'll jump to each other's stuff, like Rogan, and then Diaz will go back and forth on each other's stuff. Yeah, that's really funny. The reason why I think it's cool is because I know that they both are acting. Are stand-up comedians that are working, and I remember them talking quite a bit, being that he's a comedian, that there's only like 300 or 400 working comedians in the U.S., like people that roam around and do stand-up, and he said it's actually starting to grow again, but then it comes back to the same kind of stuff like with podcasting or music or anything, especially when you can publish yourself now, like, the cream rises to the top. So there's a lot of people trying to be comedians that aren't really that good, or they're kind of swiping shit from people. That's been a thing.
Oh yeah. From Sia and Rogan's thing.
Yeah, exactly.
They went deep on that one.
Yeah, and it what's cool though is to hear them talk about how passionate they are about the writing process and the comedy, and I would like to interview a comedian on our podcast. Yeah, that would be cool.
It's super cool. What I like about comedians too is they really don't have a filter.
Yeah,
and I try to put myself to that category, but I kind of have to have a filter for what I do as a job and.
Well, we're parents too, bro.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't just be a motor mouth all the time. I mean, you can.
So. In moderation, but for the most part, like I kind of say what's on my mind. And that's what I really like about comedians. They're people who study society and trends, and they point out the funny shit that everyone can relate to. It's great.
Well, and they have the uncanny ability to be at the worst in their lives and still make the best of it. And even if it be in the aftermath, and they made joke after joke about, you know, some tragic thing that happened, you know, or, you know, those guys like those motivational videos that'll use like some terrible situations to set you up. Like it really motivates you. And it's so silly to think, like, I think even 5 years ago, well, maybe that's not long enough ago, but even like 10 years ago to think that that's where I would get motivated to tears, you know, is like some Facebook video of some guy talking, you know, and it's like these things that they come up with. And I've even had, you know, where you'll see like a Jim Carrey type do like a serious, like motivational thing. And it's like, damn, man, how do you do that shit? You know, you're like on the shitter checking your phone in the morning before you go to work. You know, you're like, I can't believe I'm crying. It's some motivational shit. I'm going to try harder. Yes, I will, Mr. Carey.
That's good. What's cool is I think podcast is just becoming a whole nother media.
Yeah.
That people, I don't know if it would take for granted, but just a lot of people don't know. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I know nothing about podcasts until you kind of gave me a couple of episodes. Hey, check this out. And I finally just, you know, took the dive and checked it out. And I've been stuck ever since. It's a time thing too, man. It is.
It's like an hour long. Look, we're talking
I find myself, like, since I love music so much, I find myself like almost forcing myself to listen to music.
Yeah.
To break it up.
That's funny. Yeah.
It is. And it's like I'd rather listen to music. Like when I'm doing something, I have to be listening to music, to podcast, or
working out or working outside or something. Sure.
I've also found that when I'm driving, I'd rather listen to a podcast because I'm driving and I'm thinking and I'm, you know, I can kind of be in the conversation with them. But if I'm doing something active and I'm not really paying attention to what they're saying, I'd rather listen to music.
Yeah. Because
I don't want to miss the message, or sometimes I have to rewind the podcast because I'm like, what the fuck's going on? I have to go back. Go back.
Or you're tired and you're just, like in my job, I talk to people all day, whether on a keyboard or in person, just constant questions and being talked to. And sometimes a podcast just adds to that. So that's when I'll put on like something ridiculous, like some, like I listen to a lot of jazz hop. So, you know, that's like been, I've shared you a couple stations off YouTube, but there's all these streaming stations where they'll put up this stuff. It's like, you know, it's like commercial free, commercial use free, royalty free music that people will stream.
Right.
And you know, you jump on there and like listen to the live stream of it, but it's just this cool like hip hop meets jazz kind of like funk breakdown.
There's this guy I listened to the other day. I'm gonna look him up real fast. I don't know what it was about him, but I heard one of his songs in a radio station, like one of the Google radio stations or the Google Play radio stations that came across.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. Let's see what Gas Lamp Killer.
That sounds familiar.
And I listened to some of his music and like it was not really my cup of tea, but it was weird enough.
Is it like electronic stuff?
Yeah, it's like electronic, but it has like some jazzy, and then it had just some like weird samples, and it's really sweet. You have to check them out. But it's just like out of pure curiosity, I left it on.
Right.
Like I really didn't like it, but I kind of did.
Or like sometimes you'll catch like a band you've never heard of. You get one good song that's like solid, and you're like bumping. You're like, oh man! And I'll play a whole station off of that for a day and collect like 4 new musicians or bands that I've never heard. And now they're in my queue, and I'm all about them. And they're, you know, that's the thing I love about those satellite radio type deals. You know, like when that came along with I'd say Pandora was one of the first. MSN, like you know, Microsoft's MSN service had something. I can't remember what it was called. But it was a precursor to Pandora. And then when Pandora came along, that was real big. Well, same with Spotify, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know when they started independently.
Right.
But just that whole motion, man, like, you know, it sucks that the artists don't get paid as well with that system. But what's cool is that everybody can get paid if you do get played. You know what I mean? Even if you're making, you know, 0.0 of a penny or whatever. But I like that system, dude.
I think we're very fortunate to be in the generation that we're in. And to see the way it's changed from when we were kids to now.
Yeah.
I mean, our parents could say more to speak more on that, but I mean, just from the time that we were kids to now, I mean, the having to do, because 8-tracks are still available and were around. My dad had he still has that.
Right.
But, you know, cassette tapes were like our thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So, you
CDs
know,
were expensive, bro. That was something you saved for. You would like CDs, Christmas gifts.
Yeah.
Please?
The CDs came into the play. And then like you're hinging on going to the album and opening it up and seeing the artwork. And so I kind of miss that part of it. And bands still offer digital downloads and pre-order packages that have that stuff.
Moonhat still sells their album, Moonhat. They're one of our previous episodes.
Real Check them out.
Yep. They're like a funk jazz kind of band out of Albuquerque, but they're on cdbaby.com. That's cdbaby.com and Funk Hat. Moon Hat.
Funk Hat.
the Funk Hat and Moon Occasion. They're awesome. Those guys are great. But yeah, they're still doing CDs. And then speaking of that, I've actually been running into some stuff about places that you can actually create books the same way that you can do CDs. So you can actually write a book, and instead of just like doing a Kindle version of it, you can get cover art and get it bound in different ways like you would a traditional book, you know, because like we're talking about before you had anything electronic. I mean, I remember going to the library and picking up actual books, and those them shits were gold, bro. Like you hang on to them and you lost the book, you're like, damn it.
Well, that's how I felt about my CDs. Like, man, like you want to listen to the one song, like number 3 on this album is the shit.
Yeah.
And then you go and find that CD and it's fucking gone.
Right.
Or it's a coaster underneath your mom's table and you're like, fuck.
Well, I remember buying CDs and the little jewel part that holds the CD would be shattered, and you were hurt, bro.
Oh yeah.
You were hurt because it had danced around inside the package and it was all scratched and it didn't work, and you paid $20 freaking for CDs because when they would come out they were $20, man, for 11 songs or 10 songs usually, and now you pay.
If the artists were legit, they at least put 10.
Oh yeah.
Some of those fuckers shortchanged you and give you 8. And you're like, what? Come on.
Oh yeah.
You couldn't make it a double digit. You couldn't have put fucking 12 more minutes into this.
Or they try to write some bullshit about how it's their masterpiece. It's only 5 songs for $25, but it's our best music we've ever done.
Get out of here.
It's our best music.
That's like Meshuggah, man, or Meshuggah, or however you want to say
it.
They got fucking 12, 13 songs, and each of their songs are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Isn't there one that's like 21 minutes long? I think I is 21 minutes, I think. Yeah, if you guys ever get a chance, Meshuggah is the name of the band. It's a crazy metal band.
I couldn't spell it.
Yeah, it means something in
Swedish?
I'm going to mess the word up. No, Hebrew, I believe.
Oh.
I think, and I could be wrong, or maybe it's
Swedish a language?
The Swedes, what do they speak? Dutch?
Okay.
I think they speak.
Yeah, fuck that.
I don't know. That shit. See, so we're hoping to do a podcast with the Lost Vagabonders, and those guys just came back from Iceland, and I believe that they speak Dutch there, but I could be speaking. See, I'm probably already talking out of my ass, but he's cultured enough to where he could tell us.
Right.
You know, I'll be like, what about Holland?
But try do anything for 20 minutes. It's music, fucking working out, anything. Just hold a book straight ahead of you. Just hold it in your hands like this. Straight in front of you, and hold it.
Yeah. Like right now.
For 20 minutes. No, I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but hold it out there in front of you. And see how hard that is for 20 minutes. You're going to get tired.
Yeah.
Your arm's going to feel tired.
Sure.
So, to me, like, when you put that many songs on a CD, you're really giving your guy someone, you're giving them the money that you're paying. They're paying for your shit.
Yeah.
That's just crazy, though. Like, to think that we went from cassettes, tracks to 8 tracks, whatever, to CDs, and then now it's like everything's right here in your hand.
Right.
But that's also given us, because how would you put a podcast on a CD?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
I wouldn't be able to afford putting out podcast after podcast.
I mean, it's super cool that we've got this far. We have so much technology and so much stuff to learn. If people are truly interested in learning, that it's out there, you're able to learn it.
Yeah, well, and going back to the podcast, I think it's really cool because what got me interested was listening to NPR and listening to Joe Rogan and
TED Talks.
TED Talks. The NPR TED Talk podcast was the one that I first listened to, and that I ever listened to a podcast. And it was really interesting because I was intrigued at how polished it all was. Just the audio experience, like it was very visual, even though it wasn't. Like you felt like you were in the story fast, and they, just the way that they had it all. Kind of spliced and diced, and it wasn't done like ours, like a free form, start end kind of a interview. And I really liked the way it was done because they were making a point, which was to bring value to the listener, which was like, here's a fucking, the next wave of brain damage repair, or how computers work, and in the future, like quantum computing and stuff like that. And whatever the subject is, there's an iteration of an opposition to the thought process. Like they would bring it up and try to hit one subject from 3 different directions. Somebody that's for or against.
Just plain devil's advocate.
Yeah, and that to me, that's kind of what they're supposed to do. It's like journalism, right? Like you're supposed to be telling the story for what it is. And I just thought it was really good because I'd never thought about that, me trying to do that, but once you listen to like Joe Rogan and stuff, and layman's there instead of being a journalist, like you can talk to people and be genuinely interested, and as long as you're willing to chase the information stream, because like we were doing Tammy's podcast, and if you guys haven't checked that one out, that one's awesome. Tammy Griego and Ran Weathers,
jiu-jitsu,
yeah, and she's a black belt, and it's just cool to listen to things that I'm sure that I can Google them. I'd probably get misleading answers now that we've done the podcast, because now I know there's so many different variations of who's competing where, all that stuff. But it was just cool to me. It brought value even to me as the host, because I was able to learn from it, and I think that's one of the things that has you go back to podcasts like man, what is that one called, the manly stuff, or the man podcast? Damn it! Now I'm gonna feel like an ass because I listened to a few of them. But his is always like a way to dress, or a way to be as a how to handle a breakup or something silly like that, but like in a manly way. You know what I mean?
Right. How to approach interviews.
Yeah, how to do anything like that. And I really like stuff like that, because it brings value to the listener, and I have a reason to download your episode because it's tangible. You know what I mean? So I don't know, that aspect of it really drew me to podcasting fast.
Well, you hear me say a lot too is Rogan says, or on the Rogan podcast, or I listened to Rogan on, and he said this, only because I don't want to take credit away from Rogan, and I'm not trying, emulate him to a point, because that'd be great successful.
Yeah.
But he says a lot, the news media interviews and the radio station interviews, they're just an old form of media.
Absolutely.
What can you really articulate in 15, 20 minutes with that, with commercials? Yeah. Throw a commercial in there, and then you lose your train of thought. Like when I'm watching a movie on TV and then it has commercials,
that's it.
I lost it.
Right, and
you took me out of that. You took me out of that dream world that you were working so hard to pull me into.
Create, yeah.
And now I'm thinking about fucking Tide Pods and who's eating them.
Right.
That's all I can think about now.
Well, I think now you've got people that they want to learn. Like I wanted to learn the rules of jiu-jitsu. I wanted to learn how that was going, and that's it. I didn't want to watch commercials for Tide Pods, and I didn't want to watch commercials for stuff. I remember when I was a kid, there was a time when I was really pissed off. I was watching something, I don't remember what it was, but I was so mad I started actually writing down how many commercials were between each segment of this TV show. At one point I counted 13 commercials, bro. I couldn't believe it. I was blown away by it. And and I go back and like even now I tried Hulu, and like there's like 3 commercials in that sumbitch, and I was like, no sir, I do not want to extend my trial offer. Thank you Huluians, because you guys.
Well, if you do not the trial thing, does it take commercials away?
No, commercials are in the thing. That's like part of the trade-off, is that these are the guys that didn't get in the mix with Netflix or something like that. Sure. Like it's an effort to get together and challenge the some of the streaming services. So I honestly don't remember. I knew when it was launching because I was all about it. But it was like, I want to say CBS, NBC, something like that. Their shows are in there, and then you can get like Food Network. But now I feel like most of these companies, these production companies,
it's like a live TV too. What you're saying?
I think you can get live, but you're watching TV show episodes that you would get like on over the air TV, or you may have to watch like I don't know, FX or something, because it's kind of like a package. Then there's Sling, right? Where you can do all that shit.
I read on that one.
But I'm just a Netflix guy, and if I can't get it there, I have other means, right? So I just I try to keep it to where I shouldn't have to buy like 5 or 6 of these little services, because then I'm back to paying for like DirecTV or Comcast, right? Like for their TV, which is commercials and shit. And I'm like, man, there's no need for that. Like I need to keep myself a little media starved. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that's what's going back to about the transformation of music and podcasting and TV and video, is you don't just go and buy cable packages anymore.
Right.
These cable companies are going to have to think about something. Okay, how come as grown-ups now, as a kid, I was like, Mom, we don't get this station. I'd be all upset. But not knowing that, okay, well, you can pay this much money for this package, this much money for this package.
Yeah.
Why can't I pick the packages that I want? How come you can't charge me per, you know what I mean?
Damn cart.
Yeah. When that actually happens, I guarantee you Comcast or whoever does it first, they're going to be forerunners on that front for sure.
And they've got a sense that it's coming. There's no way their business model's got to change. There's so many big companies. Like I used to work for Verizon for a while, and to watch their change as you had more people using smartphones, because when I was working there, it was later. It was late 2000. It was like 2008, and there was still a majority of people that were not in the market to grab smartphones. There was a huge populace that had not converted to that. And it was like still kind of niche, and you had to teach people and all that. Now there's almost nothing else you can buy except for a smartphone, and like you said, it's all there, So before I was like, and in case you want to check your email on your phone, I had people look at me like, why would I do that? I have a computer for that. I'm sure you do, And I was selling Blackberries, man. Those were still a thing. Palm Pilots, those are still a thing. And everybody had their little camp, but now there's like no camp. You're either iPhone or Android, and
pretty much.
If you don't get it, you don't get it. Like there's just, there is, I think BlackBerry's still doing something, government or something.
I saw somebody with the flip phone the other day, and I was like, whoa. Like, no judgment, sir, but whoa.
Can you check your email?
Yeah. I mean, to have actual buttons anymore, like,
yeah.
Man, that should, like, to go back to the same shit, man. The things, how fast they've progressed.
Yeah.
I mean, they've gone from little teeny tiny cell phones to big ass cell phones and kind of back, and then there's a gamut of things.
Well, and I think the experience has gotten there. Like, I didn't understand why they were going from 2G to 3G to 4G. Like, I was like, I don't get why, and once I got older and I understood the technology better, now I see why they were always growing and essentially making it more expensive as they went, because they were investing back into this technology. Now there's going to be 5G, but the experience is so much faster, bro. Like, I remember dialing in on a modem and AOL chat rooms, bro. Like, I loved it. That was the coolest thing.
Get off the internet. I need to make a phone call.
Yeah. Or somebody pick it up and you'd hear it come through the speaker. Hello? And break. God damn it, Mom. Come on. I mean, everybody talks about it now, but it's so funny because, I mean, things move faster than they did. I remember the original internet was trash, bro. Like, I remember being on McDonald's site in like 1998, and it was just like the most behemoth crap. It was a landing page, and it was all square, and it was,
you had to wait 20 minutes for it to come up.
Yeah, you'd see it. Write the damn page and shit like that. You had.
What's funny about my boss too is, like, he's pretty savvy on technology. Not savvy, I say savvy for lack of better terms, but he knows how to work the shit he has to work.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So when something's not working out that way, he's like, "Hey, come up here, bro. This shit's not printing, or how come this is cutting off right here, or this is give me an error." So he'll call me up there, and we talk about it all the time. It's like, just I've like the basic the Bane meme. I've been molded by it, grown with it.
Yeah,
it's just it was available to us since we were kids. I mean, I remember bitting the big CD floppy disk into the.
Oh yeah,
and closing the latch, and since I was a kid, and I think that it only benefited me. I was lucky enough to
look at us now, man. I mean, we're over here, we're sitting here jamming out with. I mean, it's amazing what you can do now with just the internet, and then like the basic concept of just having a computer, which is either your phone or an actual computer. They're all essentially built the same architecture. So cohesiveness, man. So with our podcast, man, it's interesting. We go back to technology. So we got a new interface. So that's what you guys hear us coming out of. This is the second episode to come off this new interface. We're stepping into some better tech. I've found that trying to go through some amateur podcasts that I've seen, these cats don't really, a lot of times they're just jumping in with the content first, which is probably where you should start, and then they're worrying about gear. But I wouldn't have started the podcast if I didn't have at least something that could record me right.
Right.
So, so like you guys can see, I have this little tiny stand. This is going to go away. But yeah, you have no idea how many of the episodes we've done where either Fox has been on this stand or somebody else has. Yeah. I've held it before.
Holding
I've held
the microphone.
Mic. Yeah. And this little thing my brother actually gave me. So, we keep it to where we hope the content is always king. Like, we're not more worried about the gear than we are anything else, but we make sure we have what we can to make, pro stuff.
Right.
So but yeah, I mean, with the tech that we have, dude, like, I'm still learning. Like, I don't even know how to barely run the software side of the house. Like, if it wasn't for Spider, I wouldn't even know. It's all sick, bro. But I wouldn't even know what to do with the audio. Like, the guy he's a whole nother level, and that's what makes our podcast successful, I think, is there's the three of us that do the various tasks that are needed, and that includes Spider being a G with the editing. So the gear, I think, that would really make the difference for us, which is kind of funny, is just less gear, because we're mobile all the time.
Yeah.
And some stuff like this, like another stand. So that's actually the only thing that I think inhibits us at this point from making a podcast. We understand the technology, we came from it and stuff like that. We're definitely not Jedis with it, but it's gotten to the point now where I'm Jedi enough to know the difference when I hear a shitty podcast to a good podcast. And not to say that ours is like the best; it can definitely be better.
Sure,
but
always.
we put effort into the gear over the content. As a thought, I guess. And then the content, because we interview guests, I think it builds itself.
Right.
I want to do this more often for sure, because I think this is fun. But I feel like people are drawn to the podcast because we're always trying to be a little more eclectic with our guests, like people that strike us just personally. I mean, that's what the fun is of it. Like, hey, bro, you're doing something better than most other people. Like, somebody says that they're a rapper, but they don't rap. They don't actually go out and try to put on shows. Somebody says that they're into jiu-jitsu, but they're not competing every day like Tammy was, to get that black belt as fast as she did. I think that really is what draws us to these guys, is that they're just achievers. They're pursuing greatness, as much as it's cliche, it's still like legit.
It could be a cliche too, but also the fact that, we've both come from different backgrounds and different histories and experienced lives in different ways, and we're brothers basically, but we still have opposing views. We're not afraid to speak them out. I think it's cool though. We can kind of provide maybe some insight to some stuff. Maybe have a guest or two sit in with us once in a while, and maybe we can make people out there giggle a little bit, or maybe they can hear us talk and say, "Hey, I want to do a podcast," and hope, hey, by all means, it's not a competition, man. You can't be afraid for other people to get out there and get their piece of the pie. I think that's another thing that people don't understand is how easy you can make success for yourself if you really want to.
Yeah.
The internet is huge. You could sell to people in worldwide and not even have a store.
Yeah.
An actual, what they call brick and mortar, right?
Right.
I mean, that globalizes your store instantly. Like how can you not be taking advantage of that? And if you don't want to work for somebody all your life and make them millions, well, you always have the opportunity to do that. And I think that's cool that the internet, podcasts, digital downloads, all that stuff has come this way.
Yeah.
And it's cool to be, I think we're jumping on the wagon per se. At the right time.
Yeah. Well, and
glad to be part of it.
Yeah, man, for sure. It's been kind of a interesting thing. So starting even in November, we're on this will be number 15, I think, or 16, somewhere in there. Yeah. And what would be the probably the one thing you've learned? What's your most like, damn, I would have never thought kind of thing?
I think the biggest part is when you see a guest and you think they're going to talk about something, like, say, for example, I won't use any of our guests as examples because I don't want to be rude. But say you hear somebody that's a firefighter.
Okay.
And you think they're going to talk about is firefighters, but then it comes out that they're professional marble players.
Okay, yeah.
And then they start talking about marbles and how they're made, and I have 50,000 marbles. And
sure.
It's just like judging a book by its cover. Basically, is what I'm getting at. Is you never know what that person has and how they've come to live their life the way they are, and the stories and what molds them to be what they are.
Well, with Jason Hill, bro, when we did his interview, I would have never thought all of that other stuff was in there, and I don't like to interview. I don't like to look up all the stuff that there is to look up on a guest beforehand. I mean, I know you don't. We listen to music, right?
Right.
And you do so more than I do. Like, you'll go through the whole catalog for these guys, and that, I think, is because that's what is the initial draw, that they're musicians. But it's interesting what comes out of the conversations when you don't set it up,
right?
And you're letting them bring stuff up, because when it's unguided like that, man, people just talk about stuff all the time.
Yeah, but
I'm just blown away.
We learn things.
Yeah, and
learn stuff.
It brings value to the conversation and to the listeners. Hopefully, you guys, you like something on there.
See, and that's another thing too, man, is when I would listen to radio shows that I liked,
yeah,
I wish that I could have more of that all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what podcasts are.
Yeah.
They're basically a talk show or something like that you can listen to for a lot longer period and more often.
Right.
It's great.
Well, I wish, like Buck and Dex, for anybody that doesn't know who Buck and Dex is, they were some guys that did a radio show for 104.1 The Edge, I think.
They were
104.7.
Yeah, their landing station has changed a couple times.
Yeah, but they were like the show when we were in high school that would play rock mostly, and they used to be a lot different for the culture, but Clear Channel owns them. So long story short, those guys got outed. So F you, Clear Channel, for that. We like you, Clear Channel, but damn, that's some rude stuff, because they just straight cut those guys off. Like,
totally.
Severance check, have a good day, and then I know that...
and the same thing that their predecessors, and then they just filled it with the national show.
Right.
Like,
until something blows over. But
it
rips
show.
the human being out of that show, right? Because I used to tune in every day. I was constantly playing with their contests, and I'm sure they had limited numbers is what eventually did it, because they were getting older. But now I would have loved, now that podcasting is popular, to see those cats do a podcast. You know? And that's what would be really cool, because their style is really cool. I think that Buck is actually going to make one, because I saw him talking about it on social media, but Dex is already doing some other radio station, some morning Christian show, but having success and all that. But man, just to think of all the different groups that I would have listened to, because Bill Nye gets on with Neil deGrasse Tyson, to go back to it,
right?
And I would have loved to have been able to hear those guys kind of hash things out like that, because I could have learned, of course there was no way to get it. Sure, the phones, it just had to happen, the evolution of the whole thing. But it's just that now there's so many unexplored places. Like now, again, we go back, like Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse, they'll be on a podcast and I'm actually focused learning on him, compared to like passively watching him when he comes on, Bill Nye, the science guy.
Right.
It's not just, I mean,
Bill,
it is.
Bill.
Bill Nye. But yeah, that whole thing that is now, it's more focused and, it makes it feel. I feel like I learn something every time I do it. And I become a layman guy, but I'm still.
Well, that's where I hope other entities are going to start funneling into this, like the educational system. Like I hear about some friends and coworkers that still go to school.
Yeah,
and it's still the old. Let's go to school and get our books, and I feel that's also outdated. Like I've learned more in podcasts than I had at school.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
Right.
Like I mean, there's that hardcore history.
Yeah.
I mean. Podcasts like that is, man, that's
Dan
where
Carlin's
it's at.
Hardcore History is ridiculous. That's another one we listen to.
Yeah.
Is Dan Carlin's Hardcore History.
Those guys know what's up.
Yeah.
And if I had learned history that way, it would be legit.
We were talking about Alex Jones for just a hot second.
Yeah.
There. So how does he go, bro? What's his shtick?
The intergalactic child molesters.
And the president's turning into a reptilian. Reptilians are taking over.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a family show.
It's a family show. I don't mean to overreact.
Keep my cool. It just really, really makes me angry.
I only smoke marijuana once a year to test its
potency.
What's
funny
he
is Joe Rogan was saying how that had to like the most downloads for a while, and then all of a sudden it didn't. Like they're like throttling his downloads or his, you know what I mean? Did you catch what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just for that one podcast.
Really?
It's weird.
So we use Libsyn. Hello, Libsyn. If you're out there listening, yes, we see you liking our posts. Yes, put us in your spotlight. I don't know how we do that, but any good things. But Rogan hosts through Libsyn, so it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
But that's what I've seen in their ads. Is like I've seen Rogan's symbol. It says like these guys podcast with us.
Right. What's crazy though about the interweb too is it gives that platform to Alex Jones, and normally people wouldn't keep Alex Jones in that realm. He would be getting no exposure. They'd shut his ass down real quick.
Right. Well, you got to think of the days when I say before reality television, kind of, because I feel like that kind of stuff got more and more like it's just normal now, and then you had like Jersey Shore where, I mean, shit like that just wouldn't fly like in a little town here, but there, with like movie producers running around, they're like getting permits for them to like go crazy.
Sure.
Have the cops come. It's not really
cops
coming, but it looks like it, and
when I was first let down about TV, it's just like, man, has to be scripted. This can't be real. And some of the stuff that you watch, and it's just like you could tell it's scripted now.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, and like it was like when you found out wrestling was fake.
Right?
I said it.
You get all mad. Well, for a while you thought it was just people talking. Like I thought it was like friends of mine that were just talking smack, and it was like, dude, don't say that. Like, why would you say that? Like,
the Undertaker's real, bro.
Yeah, Sting's beating people up. I've seen him do it.
Slam you.
Yeah. But I think like Real World, man. I remember that was like it was like groundbreaking. I thought because the stuff that would happen in there, but then you find out all of it almost was scripted or it was set up. You know. And I was actually reading a thing on The Bachelor and how people more likely than not will actually get disqualified to be on The Bachelor for a lot of things. Like you can't be borderline like emotional and all that stuff. Like you have to be kind of like fit like a personality type.
Right.
But you go through these variations of these filters to where like they ask you all these questions and you go in front of therapists and psychologists, and then you go in front of a doctor, and I guess apparently the majority of the people that apply or they slowly are moving towards the direction of being in the actual show, they get checked out for herpes. Yeah, but I mean just shit like that, man, it totally ruins the effect for me. I think the one that got me was they were going into some supposedly never gone into tomb in Egypt.
Oh right.
Do you remember they were doing that on TV for a while?
It
was and They went into a tomb and I was just floored because they were like, yeah, they've never been in there. Well, right after this commercial break, and then they're a little bit further, and then right after this commercial break. Well, then the guy comes on, and then they show a shot of him coming through the door they just opened, but he's inside of it. Like the camera guy is already inside of it, showing him walking through the door
for the very first time.
Yeah, and I'm like, man. It's driving me nuts. How is the camera guy in there first, and then you're the guy that's like, "Oh, thank you. Yes, I know. I'm the first one in here. One small step for me. One
like
giant
the
leap
pictures
for
of the
cameraman."
guys in the moon.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's like, man, how is this happening? You know what I mean?
That's
funny. It's very questionable. But I don't know. That was the one that ruined it for me, man. I'm not a big fan of reality TV.
That's we were talking about how the internet's changing things and podcasts and things like that. I think that's kind of how Netflix and things like that are going to kill cable TV too, because their documentaries are on another level.
Yeah, and I think that the majority of the time with Netflix, it's cool because they're not controlled by these old school conventional TV companies, I guess, you know,
right?
Like and Netflix, Netflix is like its own animal, and I remember paying $7 was it a month? Yeah, a month for it, and now it's like what $11, $12. I think
15,
I paid. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
If you want multiple devices, you have to pay extra.
Yep. And I think you can get it. Is it better quality or it's just multiple devices?
I think it's just multiple devices because I got the 4K stream.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because I have a compatible device, but
can you tell when you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like we were watching Moana, you could see like the fibers of their hair and the sand. Like the sand, she'll shake her head, you know, and the sand will come off her head.
Okay. And it just looks ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a trip. Trips me out.
See, I've certain. I don't know how to go about this without revealing too many of my secrets.
Oh.
Certain versions of my movies are essentially Blu-rays, and I can emulate the same thing, but it's only like a 1080 quality because that's only how high my TV would go.
Right.
So it maxes out, you know, and like I honestly thought when I moved to this house about 2 years ago, my son broke my TV the day we got here. Yeah, I want to cry.
I remember that.
Yeah, and it was like 7, 8, maybe 9 years old. Got it on a Black Friday deal, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, oh, broken TV. But now I got to buy another one. Look at that, you know.
Whoops.
Yeah. So I go and buy a TV, and I found a deal, bro. It was a 50 inch for, I think it was a 50 inch for $300 flat, and it was a 1080p.
Yeah.
And, so I went and hooked it up, and I got it on the wall, man. And then like right at that time, I think you picked up the Pro PS4,
4K.
and I was like, man, so what's it all about, you know? So then I started talking to my buddies at work, my IT buddies, and sure as shit, man, I missed the whole bus.
Yeah.
Like, the 4K is where it needs to be, and it's cheap now too.
Well, the guy at GameStop talked Vince out of buying the 4K.
Okay.
The Pro.
Oh, really?
Talked him out of it.
Why?
Because he just said it's not worth it. There's really not much processing power, and I was like, dude, tell me again about processing power.
Yeah, that's true though. Because
your memory, and when you're your memory, man, like like Eli said, he can only put like 4 games on his PlayStation 4.
Yeah,
his normal, you know,
right,
out the box.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like the hard drive that you got because you have a terabyte,
right?
Ooh. So there's an attachment you can get on Amazon.
I heard there's internals and externals.
Externals, yeah, because there's a little port on the back. I believe it's on the back. It's a SATA port, but that's like the fastest connection. It's like what a hard drive uses for a motherboard or connects to a motherboard. So you can get a 2 terabyter plus what you have inside.
Ooh.
So you're talking like, where's all your games right there? All in the machine.
It's like the purple pill for your PlayStation.
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
Extend it up.
That's good.
I think you said it earlier, man. It's just cool as fuck to be alive in this day and age with all this technology and shit we're doing, and it's cool. I'm glad like we grew up, you know, with computers.
Yeah,
and it just makes it so much better because like our kids are not even going to be at another level if you think about it. I mean, tablets. Someone said something to me the other day. They're like, you know, your kids and probably some of the younger kids are going to be the first generation without actual photos, like paper photos, like in a book.
I didn't think about that. Yeah,
and like, I mean, how many times do we take photos on our phone and just dump them on our computer and never look them at again?
Right.
Like someone gave me advice as a dad. He's like, you need to print those pictures out and put them in a book because you'll never fucking see them again.
That's a good point, man.
Sometimes when I'm cleaning my house, like I'll come across the photo albums from my childhood, and you can't help it. You just start kind of sifting through it, yeah. And it brings back those memories. I think that we, you know, as a dad, I'm probably gonna do that eventually.
Yeah. Well, I know that Google has this cool app too where you can scan your kids' artwork. Because that's one thing that I thought of a long time ago. That well, you can scan anything, right? Like you can scan anything with 4 corners on it, a piece of paper or whatever you want. But
not the macaronis, bro.
Not the macaronis. It's not Tweety. Well, yeah. So like you scan the artwork, and I'll do like it has you take a picture essentially of the 4 corners, you know, and then you do one of the top, and it combines them together, makes a cool thing. So you get really weird looking images, and you can make them smaller, and swipeable on a phone essentially.
Right.
And I think that's cool because that's the one thing that through my daughter being, you know, she's like 11 now. So I definitely don't have all that she's made, nor my son who's 7, you know, then I got another one coming up through the ranks too.
Sure.
So but my thing is, you know, instead of losing it or it falling apart in boxes in the storage, you know, at least this way it will get looked at because I'll put my pictures and share them and all that. But you're right. Most of the time they live in the cloud and I don't ever look at them. So
it's a bummer.
Well, so what do you think with technology? What's the next thing? What's the next thing on the horizon for you? What are you going to get for a next piece of technology? What's the next family purchase?
I think we're going to upgrade our tablets.
Yeah.
At the Boyles is good. I mean, he has a Kindle, so that thing's legit as fuck. I mean, it does everything it needs to do. He has the the kid plan that we pay like that couple bucks thing a month, so he can get like different games and stuff.
That's
keeps
legit.
It fresh. And then the wife's gonna get a new Samsung tablet though.
I was gonna tell you, if you were gonna go tablets and you were gonna get a one-off for you, I actually would recommend an iPad.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you why, because I think we could also use it for podcasting, man.
Oh
and that's something I was gonna tell you guys listening, that I would like to start doing more stuff for tips for helping people podcast, because
we're gonna call it Just the Tip.
That was solid.
With Morgan.
Christensen. Oh, I'm on the tip. Wait, what? On the tit. No homo, it's not. But I think it'd be really cool to start bringing some more value-added stuff, like how to do a podcast with an iPad, how to do, how to use like a basic microphone instead of like all the gear that we use.
Right.
Which
we just covered the first tip is not to use microphones being swung around your head.
Oh yeah,
that was the first
definitely
tip.
That was good. That was rule number 1. Well, hell, man. I think what we'll have to do is we'll have to do another one. We had a few technical difficulties, aka children, and definitely had to bring it back full circle. But I think we got this one in the bag, and hope you guys enjoyed it. So hopefully we'll see you guys on the other side of the hill. We're going to try to do podcast forever, but I want to do probably like, I don't know, 10, 15, and then we'll get in and do another one like this, kind of update.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Everything we do here is all planned, every word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Right on.
Well, thanks for coming out, Doc.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for coming on the Preach Roots podcast.
Yeah, thanks again. Thanks for having me.
All right. Hey, we'll see you later. I'll talk to your agent.
All right, Fox out.
Captain out.